It was an ordinary Thursday morning, but something about it didn't sit right with Natalie. She stepped into the glossy lobby of Harwood and Lane, the marketing firm where she'd worked for the last 7 years, dressed in a navy blouse and gray slacks, her heels tapping softly against the tiled floor. She gave a faint smile to the receptionist, who returned a curious glance that Natalie almost missed. The elevator ride to the 15th floor was quiet. Usually her mornings began with a quick coffee run with Michelle from accounting or a teasing message from her husband Eric, who developed a habit of sending funny gifts to start her day. But today, like the past week, her phone was silent. No text. No, good morning, babe. No, don't forget your lunch. She tried to brush it off, but the weight in her chest said otherwise. Eric had been distant lately. He came home later than usual, barely said a word during dinner, and often turned his back to her in bed. When she'd asked if something was wrong, he'd shrugged, mumbled something about work, and disappeared into the garage. Their conversations had gone from warm and playful to awkward and clipped. Natalie sat at her desk, booting up her computer, trying to focus on the client presentation due by noon. A few coworkers passed by, some offering distracted smiles, others immersed in their own morning chaos. The usual office buzz filled the air. She forced herself to concentrate. She had to nail this pitch. It was for a major retail brand, and she'd poured weeks into the campaign strategy. At 9:42 a.m., everything changed. A man in a black coat walked into the office, escorted by security. He wasn't familiar. Tall, middle-aged, with silver-rimmed glasses and a black leather folder in his hand. He scanned the office cubicles slowly, as if looking for someone specific. The receptionist followed behind him, hesitant. "Natalie Brooks?" the man called out, his voice loud and unmistakably firm. Her hands froze above her keyboard. Heads turned. A few murmurs followed. "I'm Natalie," she said slowly, standing up. The man walked straight up to her desk, holding the folder out in front of him. "You've been served. These are official divorce papers, filed on behalf of Mr. Eric Brooks," he said loud enough for the entire floor to hear. Natalie's breath caught in her throat. Someone gasped. A chair scraped the floor. She stared at the folder, stunned. What? There must be a mistake. But the man wasn't finished. From his folder, he pulled out a clear plastic envelope revealing several printed photographs. Without asking, he laid them on her desk, fanned out for everyone to see. Natalie looked down. Photos of her and Jordan, the team's creative director, sitting close at a bar after work. Another of them in the elevator, laughing. One photo showed them entering a hotel lobby taken from across the street. She felt like the ground had opened beneath her. "No, this isn't," she stammered. "This isn't what it looks like." But her voice was drowned by the quiet gasps around her, the shocked expressions from coworkers who were already whispering behind cupped hands. Even Jordan, who had just stepped out of the meeting room, froze mid-step. "This is highly unprofessional," Michelle snapped, rushing over. "You can't just barge in like this." The man gave a brief nod. "The job is done. Please confirm receipt by signing." Natalie's fingers trembled as she scribbled her name on the clipboard he handed her. When he left, silence blanketed the office. It felt like everyone was watching her, waiting for a meltdown or an explanation. The photos were still there, staring back at her. "I didn't cheat," she whispered more to herself than anyone else. "I didn't." Jordan stepped forward, visibly shaken. "Natalie?" But HR was already moving in. Lisa, the department head, took her gently by the elbow. "Natalie, let's go to the conference room." She shook her head, backing away. "I didn't do anything. This isn't real. Eric wouldn't do this. Not like this." "Natalie, please," Lisa said softer this time. "We need to talk." Someone had already taken photos with their phone. She saw it out of the corner of her eye. Greg from legal, snapping a shot of the scene before ducking back into his office. Natalie's heart thudded in her ears. "I can't breathe," she muttered. Michelle rushed to her side. "Come with me." She let herself be guided through the maze of desks, feeling the weight of every eye, the whispers, the stares. It was as if her entire life had been ripped open and spilled across her workplace like a cruel exhibit. They reached the employee lounge. Natalie collapsed onto the couch, hands covering her face. "This can't be real," she whispered. I know, Michelle said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Just breathe. How could Eric do this in front of everyone? And those photos, they're not what they look like. Jordan and I, he was just being supportive. I believe you. Do you? Natalie looked up, tears threatening. Because no one else will. Outside the lounge, the office buzzed with quiet drama. HR scrambled to contain the situation. Someone had already emailed the photos to others. Gossip moved faster than wildfire. Natalie sat frozen. Her phone rang. It was her mother. She ignored it. Then a call from Eric. She let it ring. She couldn't face him. Not after this. After an hour of whispered conversations and awkward glances, Michelle walked her out of the office. Her manager had insisted she take the rest of the day off, maybe longer. Natalie walked through the lobby with her head down, her eyes burning. They reached the parking garage and Michelle opened the passenger door. Do you want me to drive? She asked gently. Natalie shook her head. I'll be okay. I need to be alone. Michelle hesitated but nodded. Call me, please. Natalie got into her car, gripped the steering wheel, and stared at the wall for a long moment. Everything had changed in under an hour. Her job, her reputation, her marriage. She pulled out of the parking garage, driving on autopilot. The city blurred around her, traffic lights and pedestrians blending into noise. All she could hear was the man's voice. You've been served. She was halfway home when she noticed the black smoke curling into the sky. Her chest tightened. As she approached the street leading to her house, she saw fire trucks. People stood on their lawns. Neighbors pointed and murmured. Her heart stopped. Flames. They were coming from her house. She slammed on the brakes and jumped out of the car. No, no, my baby. My daughter. A firefighter caught her before she could run past the barricade. My daughter, Claire, she's 7. She should be home. Ma'am, calm down. We're checking every room. Tears poured down Natalie's face as she clutched the firefighter's jacket. Please, please find her. Smoke billowed. Sirens wailed. Her knees buckled as the world collapsed around her for the second time that day. And all she could think was, this morning, I thought my marriage was my biggest problem. But now, she just wanted her daughter to be alive. The smoke tasted like metal in her mouth. Natalie's lungs burned as she stood frozen behind the yellow barricade tape, hands trembling, eyes locked on the flames, devouring what used to be her home, her world, her daughter's bedroom. The fire roared louder than the sirens. Bright orange licked the roof as firefighters swarmed the scene, shouting orders, dragging hoses. She wanted to scream, to tear through the barricade and run inside, but strong arms held her back. Ma'am, please stay here, the firefighter said again, gently but firmly. My daughter, Natalie choked out, her voice raw from crying. Her name is Claire. She was homesick today. She's only 7. We're searching every room. I promise you that. A neighbor rushed over with a blanket and wrapped it around Natalie's shoulders. She didn't recognize the woman through the blur of tears. Her legs nearly gave out again. Clah, she whispered, rocking in place. I should have come home sooner. I should have never left her. Minutes dragged like hours. People gathered. Some she knew, others just drawn by the smoke and chaos. Natalie caught sight of Mrs. Adler from across the street, standing on her porch, one hand covering her mouth in horror. Natalie couldn't move. She couldn't think. Her phone rang again and again. Michelle, her mother, even Eric. She ignored every call. Suddenly, a voice came over the radio. We've got a child. Southeast bedroom under the bed. Natalie's breath caught. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She's alive, one firefighter shouted. Time splintered. She couldn't hear anything but the rushing blood in her ears as 2 men emerged from the front of the house, carrying a small, soot-covered body wrapped in a gray blanket. Claire's tiny arm dangled out, her favorite stuffed bunny clutched in her hand. Natalie broke into a run. Claire, she sobbed, stumbling toward them. She's breathing, one of them said, already handing her off to the EMTs. Pulse is strong. Smoke inhalation, but she's a fighter. Natalie dropped to her knees next to the stretcher as they loaded Claire into the ambulance. Her daughter's face was streaked with soot, lips dry, eyes fluttering open. Mommy, Claire rasped, barely audible. I'm here, Natalie cried, brushing the hair from her forehead. I'm right here, baby. You're safe now. Claire's hand reached up weakly, fingers barely touching Natalie's wrist before she closed her eyes again. The EMTs moved fast, attaching oxygen and preparing to transport. You can ride with us, one of them said, pulling Natalie up. Natalie climbed in, holding Claire's hand the entire ride. Every bump in the road felt like an earthquake. She couldn't stop replaying the moment she'd seen the smoke from blocks away. Couldn't stop imagining what might have happened if the fire had started an hour earlier, or if Claire hadn't hidden under her bed. At the hospital, doctors took Claire in for observation. Natalie paced the waiting room, still wrapped in the blanket from the neighbor, still shaking. The air was cold. Or maybe it was just her. Her body had gone numb. She sat in the corner, staring at the tiled floor. Her thoughts spiraled. Divorce papers, the photos, Eric's betrayal, the whispers at work, the fire. Everything had happened in less than 12 hours. Her life had gone from organized chaos to total destruction. Michelle arrived 20 minutes later, out of breath, eyes wide. "Oh my God," she said, rushing over. "Are you okay? Is Claire?" "She's alive," Natalie whispered. "They said she'll be okay." Michelle knelt beside her, hugging her tightly. "I saw the news alert. I didn't even know it was your street until someone sent a video. I'm so sorry. I can't believe this is happening." Natalie didn't respond. She leaned into her friend's shoulder, exhausted. The fight drained from her body. "They're saying it was an electrical fire," Michelle murmured. "But that doesn't explain how fast it spread." Natalie lifted her head slowly. "What do you mean?" Michelle hesitated. "Just something I overheard outside. One of the firemen said it looked suspicious, like something was tampered with." Natalie sat up straighter. "Number? No, it has to be a mistake." Michelle gave her a long, uneasy look. "You said Eric filed for divorce and served you at the office. Then your house catches fire the same day." "Natalie, that's not normal." Natalie looked away, her mind racing. Could Eric have number? No, he was angry. Yes, hurt maybe. But he would never. Her phone buzzed on the chair beside her. Eric again. She stared at his name. "Answer it," Michelle said softly. "You need to hear what he has to say." Natalie picked up the phone and walked out into the corridor, finding a quiet corner near a vending machine. She took a deep breath and answered. "Hello?" There was a long pause on the other end. Then Eric spoke. "Natalie, I heard about the fire. Is Claire okay?" His voice was flat, distant, but there was something else in it, too. Something she couldn't read. "She's in the hospital. Smoke, inhalation. They think she'll recover." "Thank God," he muttered. Then silence again. Natalie's fingers tightened around the phone. "Why, Eric, why did you humiliate me at work? Why did you have that man show those photos? You could have talked to me. We could have figured things out." "I tried, Natalie," he said, voice sharp now. "For months, I asked you about Jordan. You lied to my face. You think I didn't notice you staying late, the messages, the way you smiled at him?" "I didn't cheat on you," she snapped. "Jordan is just a friend. Those photos were taken out of context." "You think a jury would see it that way?" Eric asked coldly. "I don't want to drag this through court, but I will if I have to." She blinked, stunned. "You already did. You dragged it through the office, through my career, through my life." Eric didn't respond. Natalie's throat tightened. "Did you have something to do with the fire?" "What?" His tone shifted instantly. "Are you serious?" "I'm asking because I need to know. Because today everything that mattered to me nearly burned to the ground." Eric sighed heavily. "You think I'd risk Claire's life?" "I'm furious, Natalie, but I'm not a monster." Her grip loosened slightly. He continued, voice quieter. "I didn't start the fire, but I did hire someone to follow you. I needed proof." Natalie closed her eyes. "You don't understand anything. You saw what you wanted to see. You were slipping away from me," he said bitterly, "and I wasn't going to just stand there and let it happen." "I never left," she whispered. "You stopped looking." There was silence again. Then he ended the call. Natalie stared at the blank screen. Everything she thought she knew about her life was gone. The marriage, the home, the trust, it had all collapsed like a house of cards. Hours later, a doctor came out and informed her Claire had stabilized and would be kept overnight for observation. Natalie could finally see her. The room was dim, the only light coming from the monitors and a small lamp near the bed. Claire lay under soft white sheets, eyes closed, breathing steadily through a small oxygen mask. Natalie sat beside her and brushed a hand through her tangled hair. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears falling again. "I should have been there. I should have protected you better." Claire stirred, eyes fluttering open just slightly. "You are here," she mumbled sleepily. "I knew you'd come." Natalie broke into quiet sobs, holding her daughter's hand against her cheek. Whatever happened next, lawsuits, rumors, rebuilding, none of it mattered as much as this moment. Her daughter was alive. But as she sat there, a quiet knock sounded on the hospital. Room door. She turned to see a man in a suit. Early 40s, serious expression, badge clipped to his jacket. "Natalie Brooks?" She nodded, confused. "I'm Detective Langley. We have some questions about the fire at your residence. Do you have a moment?" Natalie swallowed hard. The chaos wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Natalie stood just outside the hospital room, the door slightly ajar behind her. Inside, Claire was asleep again, her tiny chest rising and falling in steady rhythm under the soft beep of monitors. Natalie clung to that rhythm as if it were the only thing anchoring her to reality. But now another wave of uncertainty waited just outside it, this time in the form of Detective Langley. He held a small notebook and a calm but firm expression, as though he'd done this 1,000 times and wasn't rattled by the smell of antiseptic or the faint red marks of smoke on Natalie's face. "I know this isn't an ideal time," he said gently, "but I wanted to catch you before anything in the scene is lost. We're treating the fire as suspicious. It spread too quickly for an electrical short, and there are signs the breaker box was tampered with." Natalie swallowed hard. "Tampered with?" He nodded. "We're not ruling anything out. At this point, we need to ask, do you know anyone who might want to hurt you or your family?" The question sliced through the air like a blade. Natalie's mind immediately jumped to Eric, not because she wanted to believe he was capable of something so vile, but because the timeline, the anger, the public spectacle he'd orchestrated earlier that day. It all added up too neatly. I don't know," she said, her voice wavering. "Things have been difficult at home. My husband, he served me divorce papers at my workplace this morning publicly, and he hired someone to follow me. He thought I was cheating." Langley's eyebrows lifted, but his face remained unreadable. "I see," he said. "And would you say things between you two became hostile recently?" Natalie hesitated. "He's been distant and cold. And this morning, he showed photographs of me and a coworker to my entire office. It was humiliating, but I don't believe he would ever, our daughter was home." Langley scribbled in his notebook, then looked up again. Sometimes people make decisions in anger, without fully thinking through the consequences. "We'll be looking into everyone connected to the household. That includes your husband, but also anyone else you've had close contact with recently." Natalie blinked. "You mean Jordan? Jordan Green from your office?" Langley asked, checking his notes. "Yes, we've already learned about the photographs, and we understand the fire happened not long after that incident. It may be connected." Her throat felt tight. "Jordan didn't do this. He had nothing to do with it. Do you know where he was when the fire started?" The question hit her like a slap. She had no idea. Everything had happened so fast. "I don't know." Langley nodded slowly. "We'll be interviewing him. Just standard procedure. You're not under suspicion, Mrs. Brooks, but we'll need you to stay available for further questions." She nodded numbly. "Of course." He handed her a card. "Call me if you remember anything, even something small. Sometimes it's the smallest detail that opens the whole picture." Natalie stared at the card as he walked away. Everything in her life was now part of an investigation. Her marriage, her friendships, her home, even her child's safety had been caught in the crossfire. Later that night, Natalie sat in the hospital recliner beside Claire's bed, her mind racing in 1,000 directions. The nurses had dimmed the lights, machines beeped softly. The fire had been extinguished, but nothing felt calm, nothing felt safe. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Michelle. Call me when you can. Something weird's going on at the office. Natalie stepped into the hallway and called immediately. Michelle picked up on the first ring. Nat, I don't want to panic you, but there's something off. After everything that happened with the photos and the fire, I decided to check the security feeds from the office lobby, to see who dropped off the envelope. Natalie's stomach turned, and it wasn't a process server. It was someone pretending to be. No ID, no official documentation. The badge was fake. Natalie went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying someone wanted to embarrass you badly, and I don't think this was about divorce papers. It was staged. He came in with a folder, knew your name, waited for the perfect time, made a huge scene, and left in under 2 minutes. It was calculated. Natalie leaned against the wall. Eric said he hired someone to follow me. What if that same person staged the delivery? It's possible. But Nat, here's the part that scares me. The photos, they weren't from someone just casually snapping shots. They were taken with a long lens, professional surveillance quality, and they weren't just of you and Jordan. They were of you at home in the grocery store picking Claire up from school. Someone's been watching you for weeks. Natalie's heart pounded. Michelle, why would Eric do this? Michelle was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. But if he's behind this, it's not just about suspicion. It's control, humiliation, punishment. Natalie's thoughts spiraled. The photos, the fire, the stage spectacle at work. If Eric had really gone this far, what else was he capable of? Thank you, she said finally. Please save those security files. Can you send me copies? Already done, Michelle replied. You need to talk to that detective again, and now be careful, please. Natalie ended the call and stared down the hallway. Everything felt surreal. Her marriage wasn't just ending. It was unraveling like a mystery with missing pieces. The next morning, Claire was discharged from the hospital with a temporary inhaler and orders to rest. Natalie took her to Michelle's place, grateful her friend had set up the guest room. Claire was still drowsy, but awake enough to want her favorite cereal and her bunny by her side. Natalie called Detective Langley back. I have more information, she said. I think someone impersonated a process server to humiliate me. The photos Eric gave me, they were taken from long distances, surveillance style. My friend works in building security. She has the video. Langley agreed to meet her that afternoon. At the precinct, Natalie handed over the files Michelle had sent. Langley watched the video twice, expression tight. When it ended, he said only one thing. This was a setup. Do you think Eric's behind all of it? She asked. I can't say yet. But whoever orchestrated this had help and access. We'll be issuing a subpoena for phone records and bank statements. If your husband paid someone off, we'll find it. Back at Michelle's, Natalie sat by the window, watching Claire nap on the couch. The sunlight filtering through the curtains made everything feel deceptively peaceful. But inside her, a storm brewed. Eric hadn't just broken her trust. He'd tried to destroy her identity, humiliate her in front of her peers, put their daughter at risk. This wasn't about a marriage ending anymore. It was about protecting what remained. When her phone buzzed again, she expected another update from Langley, but it was a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Brooks? The voice was low, male, unfamiliar. I was the one hired to follow you. I need to talk. Natalie's blood turned to ice. Who is this? She asked. I was paid cash, no names. But what happened to your house? That wasn't part of the job. I didn't sign up for that. She sat up straight. Do you know who started the fire number? But I saw someone leaving the property an hour before it went up. I took pictures. I didn't know it'd go that far. Send them to me, she demanded. I will. But if anyone finds out I called you, I'm finished. This goes deeper than you think. You were just the first step. The line went dead. Natalie stared at the phone in her hand. First step, a chill passed through her. Someone had turned her life into a battlefield. And now, she was beginning to see just how many pieces were in play. The pictures arrived within minutes, and what she saw in them made her gasp. The man walking away from her property. The same one who had pretended to serve her papers in the office. Only this time, he wasn't carrying an envelope. He was holding a gas can. Natalie knew then this wasn't just about Eric. Someone else was involved. Someone she didn't see coming. And the game wasn't over yet. It had only just begun.